Welcome to Facts Over Feelings. Today we are examining Project 2025. This will be an overview of what the Heritage Foundation is and also how Project 2025 is not endorsed by any politicians that are running for president at this time. The reason I'm making this video is because there is extreme gaslighting and lying going on in the media and in Kamala Harris's campaign because she has not developed any policies to run on. So instead, what she's doing is she is saying that Project 2025 is going to take away the Constitution and things like that. They don't even make any sense, but for some reason, some people believe it, and they're posting all these memes on social media. And now, ironically or not ironically, after the failed assassination of Trump, all of a sudden, you started to see things about Project 2025 in mainstream media. Before that, it was mostly just online on social media accounts and things like that. The main pseudo news source that I saw that was reporting on it was MSNBC, which doesn't really count because it's a place where pundits share their opinions and it's extremely slanted to the left. So it's not really a place where you can get accurate information. But now we are seeing the story seep into some mainstream media news outlets. And the way that it's being presented is very deceptive. And people have trouble, I guess, like discerning what a headline actually means or how the story is written or conveyed through the news outlet. Like basically what they're saying is, yes, Project 2025 exists. Yes, it is from a conservative think tank, but if Trump gets elected, oh boy, watch out. He's probably going to use this, which there's no reason to think that. And we're going to go over a few reasons why that's just like irrational. You're not using logic if you think that. You are operating purely on emotion if you think that. But first, let's talk about what the Heritage Foundation is. The Heritage Foundation is a think tank that has been around for 50 years and actually over 50 years. And it has put out these blueprints every election cycle since it's been around. The point is they have ideas that they want for America. And of course, they lobby Congress and try to get policies passed, just like the liberal think tank of the Brookings Institute does as well. So they've been around for about 50 years too. And they have a blueprint for 2024, and they've had them in the past. In fact, Jimmy Carter, when he was elected, he basically used the blueprint that the Brookings Institute had developed for that year. And when Ronald Reagan was elected, he basically used the blueprint that the Heritage Foundation had developed the year that he was elected. So yes, there are some presidents that will dive in and use some of the things in these blueprints, but the way that it's being presented this year it's like, oh, this is something new. Oh, this is something Trump based. No, this happens all the time. And if you're not familiar with lobbying, go down to your state capitol and hang around when your state representatives are in session, and you will see that there are all types of organizations that lobby the government. Businesses, churches, nonprofit organizations, even individuals go down. If they have something that they're passionate about, they'll go and they'll lobby because they want certain policies passed. This is part of our system, whether you like it or not, and it's nothing new. So to suggest that the Heritage Foundation is doing something nefarious here is really silly. And I fault our education system because so many people are believing this. It's really sad. I am embarrassed for a lot of people who are just throwing up these memes on Facebook, and they seem to be suggesting that this is how you should choose who you vote for. So the memes will say something like, don't let Project 2025 happen. But nobody chimes in and says, hey, can you send me a link to this Project 2025? I don't know what it is. I want to read some of it. I want to see what it says. And this is not some secret document, folks. You can go and access it yourself. There is a book that'll come out later, but you don't need the book. You can go to the website and you can check out what's actually in it and the purpose of it. So it's really disturbing that people are not willing to do that. So I have included the link below to the website. You can check it out for yourself. And also, I want to take a look at this interview that the man who is in charge of the organization that developed this blueprint put out. And it's interesting because he's being interviewed on MSNBC, which I said, it's kind of hard to get news from there. But at least they're honest about it. And they say that this has nothing to do with Donald Trump or anyone else that's running for president. So let's take a listen.
2025, spearheaded by conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, is a years in the making, 900-plus page presidential transition plan giving Team Trump a detailed blueprint for a potential second term. That blueprint would radically remake the federal government, if executed, with its stated goal being, quote, to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state. The project is built on 4 pillars, which go well beyond previous transition efforts. There's the policy agenda, personnel, training, and a 180-day playbook to execute the think tank's plans. Many authors of the blueprint are former Trump officials. Joining us now, one of the architects of Project 2025, the president of the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Roberts. Thank you for joining us and coming. I know people are like, y'all got the architect of the 2025? Yes, because everyone has been talking about it. And we saw an interview that you did with the Associated Press, and we've been reading through some things. And I think we just want to first start with anchoring this conversation in. You told the New York Times that this plan is a plan that you know, is for anyone. It's not just for Donald Trump. You would like if President Biden would implement some of it, but you don't think that that's going to happen. And so you reject the assertion that this is a plan that was cooked up specifically for the second coming of the Trump administration.
I appreciate that question because as your lobby shows when you walk in, you've got the word honesty and the word accuracy there. That's an honest and accurate depiction, and I'm grateful. Number one, the Heritage Foundation couldn't do that because we are nonpartisan. We can't be tied to one candidate. Secondly, we have offered a briefing of Project 2025 dating back to last year to every candidate for presidency, including President Biden. Honest to goodness, I would have been thrilled if President Biden and his team asked for a briefing. We understand that we have differences of opinion on just about everything. But at Heritage, we believe in telling the truth with a smile on our face. But the last point I should make is that now that President Trump is the nominee, and President Biden has not taken a Project 2025 briefing, President Trump is going to make decisions about policy in his administration if he wins. Project 2025 is something that's going to transcend the next 4 years, the next 10 years. It really is, for the first time in the history of the conservative movement, the apparatus for policy and personnel. That's the most important thing to remember.
I have one follow-up. It's just that you have said that this plan is about institutionalizing Trumpism. So, because I also know you all, not just the president of the Heritage Foundation, you're also president of the Heritage Action, which is the political action committee. And so, is it tied to Trump or not?
I said the context for that comment to the New York Times was that the work of the Heritage Foundation was to institutionalize Trumpism. Trumpism as a new version of conservatism, a conservatism that recognizes that by every objective measure, the United States is weaker in 2024 than it was in 1984. We also happen to think that's reversible, by the way. We're ultimately optimists. And by institutionalizing Trumpism, what we're saying is that even though we are known as Ronald Reagan's think tank, I'm a son of the Reagan Revolution, I'm very proud of that, that's 40 years ago. And we need to understand what time it is in America. And right now, Donald Trump, whether someone likes it or not, I happen to like it, is the standard bearer for conservatism.
Well, Michael, what time?
Even MSNBC, which, like I said, is not my favorite network, even they admit that this has nothing to do with Trump. And as Dr. Roberts says, they can't be associated with any political party. So what they did was they offered to share this information with everyone that's running for president, because no matter who is in there, you never know. Somebody might like some of the policies you have. They may not adopt them all, but you should try with everyone. And that's what the Heritage Foundation does. That's what the Brookings Institute does. So this is really important because it's not being framed that way. It's being framed like, oh, these guys, like they're part of the Republican Party and this is Trump's plan. That's not true. This is just a think tank. And like I said, they lobby like everybody else. So that's important to know. But also, I just want to point out that Trump has been president before. He was in office for 4 years. And one of the things that was characteristic of his administration was the fact that he didn't really listen to people. In fact, lots of conservative Republicans are unhappy with him and are not even supporting him this time around because he did not listen to them. He didn't run things the way that they wanted. So with that in mind, why would you think that Trump would walk into office and just accept a blueprint from a think tank and say, okay, I'm not going to use any of my ideas. I'm just going to go with what you have. Now, like I said, Reagan and Carter basically did that, but the ideas that they used lined up with ideas that they actually wanted to implement and that they talked about in their campaign trail. Anyone who knows anything about Donald Trump knows that he's not this uber conservative guy. So why would you think that he would take a very conservative document and implement it all? This makes no sense. Now, there may be some ideas in there that he would implement, but they're ideas that he has as well, not things that just the Heritage Foundation came up with that he's just going to say, oh yeah, whatever you say, I'll do it. That clearly does not work with Trump. So why would you think that that would be going on now? Also, if you want to know how far the Republican Party has gone away from being extremely conservative, whether that's good or bad is up to you. If you want to know, then you should take a look at the clips from the Republican National Convention this year. You'll notice it's not your grandpa's convention. It was a lot different. And you also will be able to find a lot of establishment Republicans complaining about it because there were all types of people there from all different walks of life. There was no purity test to get on that stage. And a lot of establishment Republicans don't like that. They don't like that there were lots of minorities, gay people, veterans, different religions, different prayers from different faiths. They didn't like that. So see, this is the thing. Trump is not some uber conservative. In fact, the Republican Party is not super conservative. And if you look at this document here, this is actually the platform of the Democrat Party in 1992. Now, this is so interesting because look at what's on this. I want to point out that the number one thing that's on here at the top, this is exactly what Project 2025 is actually about. And you heard it stated in the interview with the MSNBC host. It is about getting rid of that administrative state that is a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. So let's look at what the Democrat Party was trying to do in 1992. It says, we call for a revolution in government to take power away from entrenched bureaucracies and narrow interest in Washington and put it back in the hands of ordinary people. We vow to make government more decentralized, more flexible, and more accountable. Now, if you read or even skim through Project 2025, you'll find that that is the goal. Why? Because over the past 3.5 years, we have had a huge takeover by the administrative state where they are making regulations that they can't make laws. Congress makes laws, but they're putting forth regulations that take away freedoms from Americans. That's what we've done. We've seen that with the border. We see that with protests, all types of stuff. So that's what Project 2025 is really about. So it's really important that you at least skim, see what they're talking about instead of just believing what you heard on like Facebook or whatever. And also think about why the Democrat Party doesn't care about that anymore. Why aren't they talking about that? Well, part of it is because they are the reason that we have so much, a huge administrative state, because in Biden's administration, it has grown tremendously. And that's something that I'd like to cover because I've been watching congressional hearings and I see that you have these agencies come in like the ATF or whatever, and they have some regulation that contradicts law that's already on the books, but they want to pass it anyway. And no one's voted on. They're not elected. They're not elected officials. And they don't make laws. So why would you have something that would completely negate a law? So just things to think about. I hope that this helps people consider the fact that they need to consider more than just their emotions or what they see on Facebook or X or Instagram or TikTok when they're deciding to vote, because I hear a lot of people who they don't know what's going on. They just see a meme and they run with it and they get all emotional about it. And I'm like, what about logic? Let's use some logic here when we're evaluating who we're going to vote for. So that is all for now. I will see you in the next one. Remember to like and subscribe.